Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm broadcasting to you live from New York City. And I'm super thrilled that you're on board wherever you're listening. If it's here in New York, great. Anywhere else in the United States, Canada, Mexico, or anywhere else on our planet, thanks for being on board. And I just had a great conversation with Kady Pooler. That's Kady, Kady, and you'll hear why in the episode. But she happens to have been a professional tennis player, and she's been kicking ass in tennis since really the age of 4 or 5. It's an amazing story. You'll love hearing all about her. She's also doing some great work now with athletes as they transition out. Obviously a topic that's near and dear to my heart. We talk quite a bit about that. But before you listen to the episode, make sure you click on the subscribe button wherever it is on your screen, whether it's on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're accessing this episode. Please subscribe to all the episodes. You can also check them out on my website, markmoyer.com. I've done now 53 episodes and counting, and there's access to all of them on that site. Also on that website, you'll get access to my book, Win Again, which you can also get on Amazon. You can also really get lots of great career and business advice, all kinds of stuff there. But for now, I want you to listen to this episode. You're going to love it. Kady's great, super funny, personable, interesting. You're going to love this episode. Happy listening. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer. Sure is. And I'm super duper excited to have as my guest Kady Pooler from way over there on the left coast. Say hi, Kady.
Hey, how you guys doing?
All right. So first of all, I'm going to say Kady about two or 3,000 times in this podcast, but I want everybody to know it's Kady. For Christ's sake, don't think it's Katy. All right? How'd that happen, by the way? Did your parents say, look, you're in California, you got to be different? What happened?
They didn't say that, but I think that was definitely probably the premise of it. The story that I heard is I think my mom was in labor and they had to stop for batteries for the camera. And then I guess there's a singer named Kady Lang, but it's KD.
Yep.
Apparently my mom thought that was cool and called me Kady. And not Caddy.
Well, it's funny because people always say to people, oh, that's such a beautiful name, as if hey, look, I was 0. I had no choice in the matter, it is what it is. But,
yep.
Although it reminds me of, having a dog, though, is a different story, because then people, I'll be walking my dog. Oh, he's so cute. I'm like, yeah, I just bought him that way. I didn't, no DNA involved, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, so Kady is, I didn't really get into this yet, but Kady is an amazing tennis player, has played professionally, and you've taught close to 2 or 3 million people, I think, how to play. Does it feel that way?
Probably. Yeah.
But it's funny you say that, because I grew up playing tennis and I took 1 million lessons and that sort of thing. But what stands out of all the lessons actually is my mom, of all things, screaming at me to bend my knees. And I don't know, I'm scarred with that. It's in my head. Bend your knees. So that's it. That's all I got. That's all I got on the tennis thing. But so Kady, we're going to talk in a few minutes about what you're doing now, which I think is fabulous. And you and I are absolutely going to be collaborating on a few things because, your personality is great. You know your stuff really well. You've been there and you've gone through it all. But let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to hit the rewind tape a little bit and basically tell me a little bit about Kady growing up and where you were sort of born and raised and what got you involved in tennis in the first place.
Yeah, so born and raised in Southern California in Orange County, kind of before Orange County was the OC. I used to tell people I was from there and they're like, where's that? So yeah, born in San Clemente, California, total little surf town, beach town, and then spent kind of my other 9 years in Laguna Niguel, a neighboring city. My dad was a big golfer, and again, this is kind of more story in what I've heard because I was too young to remember.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a tea time to make, and he was responsible for babysitting me that day. And so he tried to put me into the golf camp for kids, but it was full. But they said they had space left for the tennis camp, so I could join that if I wanted. And at that point, he didn't really care. He needed to go to his tea time, so he was like, "Yep, put her into the tennis." And this was around 4 years old. And then story goes, I enjoyed it and wanted to go back.
Nice. Way to go, Dad. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
For being initially selfish, but you've caused all this greatness to happen. I love it. By the way, I didn't even know you spent all the time in Laguna Niguel. I spent, how long? 6 months in Laguna Niguel.
No way. Yeah.
We
need to talk about that.
I know. What the hell? Yeah, I shouldn't tell you a year, but this is, I'll tell you, 1987.
Cool. I was 1.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I was 2. Fine.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, 22. All right, anyway, moving right along. Damn it. So you started playing tennis, you were 4, you had no clue you were 4 years old, but you liked it and you started getting better and all that kind of stuff. But when did you start thinking, what point in your, whether teenage years, et cetera, did you start saying, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at this. Like this may be something that could develop.
Yeah, about 7. So I think it was around 7 years old that the local club pro actually contacted or approached my parents and said, I think your daughter has some talent. I'd love to give her, private lessons. At this point, I'd only done group clinics and kind of more group events. And my mom thought, oh, this lady just wants our money. So she politely declined. And then back in the days for the tournaments, you used to get like a brochure, a tournament blank in the mail. We received one. It was in Fallbrook where my grandmother lived. So my mom thought, well, let's see what this, what this is all about. And had signed me up for, I believe it was the 10 and unders. And then I actually think I lost first round, which was, a little disheartening, but I ended up winning the consolation draw. So I won the entire back draw. And this was against other 10-year-olds. So pretty good. I remember still like holding my trophy, driving home with it, kind of like, I think it was Searching for Bobby Fischer, that movie. I'd like recreated that. And then pretty much from there, I started getting private lessons. And then at the age of 9, I had a full sponsorship from Prince Rackets where I would get 4 packages 2 packages every quarter with 6 rackets, hats, headbands, sweatbands, shirts, shoes, you name it. It was Christmas. So at that point, I was one of the top players in the country, and it was, from there, it was my life.
And it's funny, by the way, every time I hear Prince, and again, I'm just going to throw a big giant spotlight on how old I am, but I remember when Prince first came out, it was a big scandal because they had this oversized racket, and everybody else was still running around with their Jimmy Conn, the XT3000, whatever it was called, and these wooden rackets and everything else. And then here comes this giant Prince racket, and everyone's like, "What the hell is that? You can't use that." And of course, I'll say at the time, we'll say more senior citizens will say, where they were like, "Screw you, we're using this thing." And but then obviously over the course of time, it became a force in the market. That's so cool to get that stuff all the time. Now, so you're 9 and you're 10 and you're 11, and just like, I'm assuming your lifestyle was very similar to a child TV star, right? You were, living in a giant mansion with lots of people walking around with champagne glasses and stuff. And is it like that all the time or not?
Yeah, no, not quite.
I'm kidding.
I definitely think similar to that probably of a child star. I actually am good friends with one, and I think that's what we relate over. Kind of having lost our childhoods and adjusting to life after that. But no, obviously there was no butlers, no champagne. I mean, I was fortunate. I did grow up in a middle-class family, so I was very fortunate in that sense of not having a lot of financial struggle. But I was really self-motivated. They're really, I think a lot of times you hear for tennis players, their parents were the ones who were their drivers and their pushers. Neither of my parents honestly really cared. They cared, but it was never like, hey, you have to get to practice and what are you going to do today and setting it up. I had to arrange all of my own practices, lessons. I used to call every Sunday and call all my friends in the area and set up my tennis for the week. Even in the 4th grade, I used to set my alarm for, I think it was like 5 or 5:30 to go out and run sprints. And this is when I was like 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I'm
really,
impressed.
yeah, really self-driven. I don't know where that went.
Yeah, don't even try with that. But I can, well, look, so, because it's interesting, what you went through at an early age, obviously, is what a lot of student athletes go through as they get older, especially as they enter college, where you've got this tremendous time investment you need to spend with your sport. And then you've got the academic investment you need to make to basically continue on as a student. And then you've got the social part too. And I think it's a big struggle amongst especially student athletes to balance all three. And in your case, it started a lot sooner than that. I mean, when you're a teenager, especially, I mean, well, tell me a little, in your case, like, well, how did you get through that time where, there had to be some point where you were like, hey, I want to just like go to the movies or I want to do something, but academics and sport, how'd you balance that all?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think honestly, and ultimately one of them, if not more than one, has to give. Tennis was really always my biggest focus, like tennis and my family.
Right.
So I think, in terms of high school, I was social. I've always been pretty social. I enjoy people and making friends. And I think because of tennis, it also allowed me to be accepted. And I was kind of friends with pretty much all the different groups and cliques. But I wouldn't say that I was deeply involved in any of them where it was like, that was my group and we were hanging out on the weekends.
Right.
Weekends were tournaments. So I didn't really hang out with friends too much. I had maybe my closest friends. One was, a lot of my neighbors. But for the most part, it wasn't like I had this big social life. And I think a lot of it too was actually foregoing the academy route. So I had some opportunities and options for some scholarships to go to some of the larger tennis academies where you're pretty much, on court all day long. Maybe there's some, schooling sprinkled in. But I definitely didn't want to go that route. I liked living my so-called normal childhood. I would go to school and kind of, be the class clown and the talker and get in trouble. And then I did have some preferences in terms of I usually finished school a little bit earlier than the other kids. And then my dad or my grandmother would pick me up. And then it was pretty much off to tennis, probably usually from like 1 till it could be 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Wow. And it is, at that age, was it mostly time on the court or was it some of the time on the court and some sort of doing exercises and stretching and that sort of thing? Or what was it like?
Yeah, I'd say mostly on court, but I was really lucky in that I started like legit fitness training probably around 12-ish. And I had a really good trainer. He was actually the local trainer at our club, but I think he was a little bit cutting edge, but forward thinking, and really knew tennis. So it was very sport specific. And I think that was actually a big part of my foundation.
That's great. So as you're going through these teen years and then you're going to high school, but at what point did you say, or was someone else telling you, hey, it's time to do you become a professional at a certain point? Are you amateur until, or when's that cutoff happen? How's that work?
Yeah. I mean, at the age of 11, I knew I was going to go pro. For me, that was it. And in some ways, and I'm sure we'll get to this, the only thing I ever thought of. But I was going to go pro and that was it. A lot of, especially in the US, well, in general, a lot of pros are turning pro around 15, 16. And then as a lot of people know, if you do that, you forego your college eligibility. And actually it was around the age of 15. I had an offer. I went to the Orange Bowl. It's one of the biggest tournaments for juniors. It's a grade A. So it's similar to that of like a US Open or Wimbledon for the juniors. And there was a guy there who was from the Italian Tennis Federation. And he had approached my coach and basically said he wanted to sponsor me and fund me to turn pro for 2 years. Essentially all expenses paid. But the big caveat was going to be if I got injured, then basically everything would be void. And at that time I did have a hurt shoulder, and I don't know, I wanted to go to college. Like I had heard about it. I know a lot of people had fun. And I think for me, the biggest thing was I wanted to be a part of a team. And I knew that would be pretty much my only opportunity with the sport. So luckily declined that, and then ended up going to college and turned pro later on after.
So you turn pro, and you have a certain level of success, but what do you think, was there a point while you were playing that you were saying, well, I'm not sure if I can get to that top level, or what was going on while you were just turning pro and you played some tournaments and so on?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I think from the beginning, and I think that's a lot of it is when I have to look back and reflect, now kind of why didn't I make it? I actually don't think it had a lot to do with my game or athleticism. I feel that I was blessed with actually a lot of natural athleticism. And I have a strong frame, and I'm 6 feet tall. And my tennis game, I think, was there, but I actually think it was kind of what you were just alluding to, the mental side, where I never came out actually with that like killer mentality and the confidence that I'm going to breeze through these lower tournaments. And basically it's kind of like, yes, I can be the US Open next year. Let's go. I think that I was lacking some of that confidence in belief, which I think ultimately translated over.
Interesting. So you've played, but then what was the moment or the time that you kind of said, well, you know what? I've played it. I gave it my shot. I did it. It's time to call it. How'd that go?
So there was kind of two parts to that. So the first time around, I was playing for maybe a little bit over a year. And then there was a couple of family things that happened. So actually, my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease when I was 12.
Okay.
For anybody who knows that disease, it's a really steadily, aggressively, steadily progressing disease. And so by the time I was on tour, I was about, I think, 21, 22, and he had taken a really big decline. And I'm his only child. So at that point, it was kind of, again, this kind of family first mentality for me. And at the same time, there was also some issues with my sister graduating high school, which I can kind of save that story. So I just kind of felt like, okay, I've done it. My ranking wasn't going too high. It was for doubles. But I felt like I just needed to go and be with my family. And then that kind of transitioned to a different part of life where I ultimately did go back on tour. And at that point, I just wasn't ready for it physically. I hadn't played in 4 years and went back on tour. So injuries happened. And then, you eventually burn through pretty much all your money because it's really expensive and you don't make a lot.
And so walk me through now. So it's 4 years later, you go back on, you have some injuries, and you decide, okay, well, I can't continue on. Tell me what was going through your mind about, well, am I really ready for life after tennis, or what do I need to do to be prepared for that? Or what was your situation? Had you been preparing for life after tennis beforehand, or was it something you'd kind of pushed off to the side?
Definitely pushed off to the side.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had never, ever really given thought to life after tennis. Like when kids dream, a lot of them are dreaming about different, like their careers and what they want to do, whether it's an astronaut or a firefighter. And I definitely had some of those dreams as well. But for me, it was always win the US Open, like be like Steffi Graf, win multiple Grand Slams. And that was it. That was like the end picture. So no, I wasn't ready for it. And I think, to be honest, I probably disassociated and just kind of started going through motions, not really accepting the full reality that it was over. And I think that was kind of evident in the fact of afterwards, I coached a couple juniors and some kind of transitional pro players. So everything kind of like slowly staggered on from it to where it was kind of hard to let go. And I think that honestly, it was kind of, tennis was always this thing I could always go back to. Hence where, like, after 4 years of teaching, I, woke up, went to my principal and said, essentially I quit, I'm going back on tour. Because it's like, it was that thing that was always there and I was never really ready to let go of.
So speaking of all that, do you have advice for, I mean, I know you do, but why don't we just spend a couple of minutes talking to or speaking to some of the kids and teens and early 20s people that are, whether it's tennis or maybe they're playing golf or something that's maybe a non-team sport. So it's all based on your individual performance. What kind of advice can you give them about is there anything they can do now that can prepare them for life after their sport, even though right now they're invincible and there's no way that their sport will ever end, right? But what can you tell them?
I mean, I think first and foremost, it's that all athletes need to realize, and I think this is what's really unique, is for 100% of them, all of them, your sport will come to an end one day.
Yep.
Now, what that looks like is going to be different for others. Maybe it's, an injury that's career ending. Maybe you are retiring with, hundreds of $1 million in the bank. Maybe you're in debt. I don't know. But no matter what, it's going to come to an end. So I think first and foremost, like just grasping that and understanding that and accepting that is probably the best place to start. And then I think from there, it's also doing some reflective work and inquiry and even writing. And I can go, I have a bunch of different exercises, but figuring out who you are. And so for me, it was always, oh, you're the tennis girl. And that was from a really young age. And even, my parents, it was typically one of the first ways I was introduced, or tennis came up within the first minute. And so my entire identity got wrapped around that because I got a lot of confidence from it and self-worth and praise and, glory. And so, yeah, I was the tennis girl, and I didn't really even know who I was outside of that. And so that was something that also was really hard work for me once tennis ended, because if I wasn't the tennis girl, who the hell am I? And so I think if I would have actually thought about that earlier on and figured out who Kady is as a person, that would have helped to eliminate a lot of, honestly, the pain around that question.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head, because, the athletes that I speak with, so many of them almost repeat exactly what you said. They say, it never really dawned on me that I should be ready for this. It's, you're, in your case, you're 16, you're 18, you're 20, 22, and you're bulletproof. Nothing bad's going to happen. And, you sort of think at that age, you're still not fully matured yet. And the idea of getting ready for something else is just so foreign. And, it's interesting because it's not even just young athletes. It's also, if you speak to, for example, a policeman or policewoman who has been on the force for 22 years, and you ask them, well, what are you going to do next? They're like, I don't know. I'm just going to I don't know. They don't even, it's typical. But I find that, interestingly, an athlete who prepares for life after their sport while they're playing is actually going to perform better, because there's that little part tucked back in their mind that they have that feeling or that assurance that they're almost ready for, if something happens, that they don't need to worry about it. It's almost like a little miniature weight off their shoulder. And when that is gone, it's almost like if you have a to-do list during the course of a day and you get to the bottom of it and you're like, this is weird. Wait a minute, I don't have anything to do? Whoa, that's amazing. And I think that if we, and we're both involved with this, Kady, but teaching and showing athletes that even if it's something simple as you said, you've got some exercises that people can go through. But if it's something where they can anticipate, well, gee, you know what? I'd be really good in media or PR, or I might be good in business development, or I might be good doing promotional work, or I might be good in science, or whatever it is. But something is, I like to tell people, look, if you have the opportunity to spend 1 hour a week, doesn't matter what hour that is. You can be in a hotel room when you're on a road trip as an athlete or whatever it is, but something that's almost exercising a different part of your brain. Let's say you just start reading about science or law or economics or something different that's not just surrounding your sport, then you're going to be much more prepared after the sport.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, damn it, let's do that. Let's teach everybody that, Kady. Come on.
That's my plan.
All right, cool. So let's talk about that plan a little bit. I know that you spent some time after you you got out of college and you finished playing your sport and you taught. I love this. I mean, I'm going to ask you this because I'm dying to know. So you were a math teacher and
Uh-huh.
you were teaching high schoolers, right?
Yes.
So talk to me, Kady. What was the biggest challenge teaching high school kids math?
I mean, I think it's obvious, just making it interesting. And it's pretty funny because actually math was my least favorite subject by far. Also the most difficult for me. So it's kind of ironic, and all my friends left when they found out I was gonna be a math teacher. But I think it actually set me up for success in the sense of I had to really go and relearn a lot of that information myself. And because I struggled with it, the way I learned it was truly step by step by step. And so the way that I was able to teach it was step by step by step. And I think that helped those students who typically struggled with math to actually catch on and pick it up. I had a lot of parents who reached out to me saying kind of like, yeah, Johnny usually struggles with math and hates it, but like he loves your class and he's excelling. And then there'd be the smart kids, who are always like, yeah, but Miss P, can't you just skip this step and like do this? And I'd be like, probably, but we're not going to in this class.
Oh my God.
But
well,
yeah, making it interesting.
It's funny you say it because my son then would absolutely get crushed because he's 16 and he's the king of not showing his work. Like he just goes, well, the answer is 6. Well, no, but you got to show why the answer is 6. And I'll be like, oh, but he'll be like, no, 2 times 4 is 6. Definitely. No, it is. And then so it's, anyway, but I mean, I have the utmost respect because teaching high schoolers to me has got to be because they're at an age where their hormones are flying, they're moody, they're crazy, they're up to no good, there's all this other stuff, but they can also be great kids if they want to be and all this. And it had to be a mishmash of everything. Would you ever
totally.
go back to that?
Honestly, I would if teachers got paid more. Like it really is incredible. And I know this is kind of a long, lasting debate, but I think that, for me, it was the most rewarding job that I've done, kind of, up thus far, making a true impact. And like you said, on, kids who are impressionable, but also a lot of it is outside of teaching. And that's kind of, I think, where, I loved also wearing my coaching hat, because you also have a lot of kids who are dealing with their family problems or, their girl or boy problems for the first time and just general trying to fit in the world. So a lot of it was actually developing relationships with the kids, getting them to buy into you, and then kind of like the work almost came secondary, but they would do that because they had a relationship with you. Right.
That's great. Well put. Well, Kady, you've got my vote, whatever that means, to pay teachers more.
Yes.
I don't know where I'm going to get that money from, but I'll take it from something else and we'll pay the teachers more. And we'll get into all that stuff. Oh my God. Anyway, so then you tell me a little bit about some of the pit stops you made afterwards. We don't need to go into too much depth, but really what is it that led to what you're doing now?
Yeah. So after college, went to America, went over to Cardinal Newman, so taught for about 4 years. I kind of had a panic moment when I was in a department meeting, and I just honestly realized this isn't what I want to do for my entire life. So literally the next day I quit, and I went back to what was easy, what I knew, tennis. And I looked online, I put together my tour for the year. I think this was in November, and my first tournament was literally like January 1st. So I had 2 months to get myself ready for professional tennis after not doing anything for 4 years. Did that for about a year, but pretty broken throughout. And then I started coaching a couple kids who were trying to also play some pro tournaments, determine if they wanted to go pro or not. And then from there, it also turned into kind of college coaching. It was always these natural progressions that just kind of showed up and allowed me to still kind of cling or stay with the game. Loved college coaching. I did that for about 2.5 years, close to 3. And then again, I had one of those moments where it was just kind of like, I need more. And these hit me every now and then, but specifically this time, I think it was this kind of, awakening in myself that I didn't want tennis to be my whole life. I'd already dedicated at that point, essentially like 28, 27 years to it. And I thought that I was more than tennis. It was kind of time, and I was grateful for it, and it had given me a lot, but it was time to kind of let it go and move it to the past. And I wanted to see what else I could be and what else I could do. And I had just moved to Oakland at that point, which is kind of across the bridge from San Francisco, Silicon Valley, which is basically startup central. I had heard about startups. I didn't really know what they were, but I started researching it. I thought they sounded really cool. And I loved the fact that you're not employee number 20,000 where they're like, here's your manual, follow everything to the T and you're a hamster in the wheel. And the fact that you got equity, I thought, oh, how cool.
Of course.
Yeah. So I was actually it was at one of my last tournaments. It was the pre-qualification for the US Open. And I was getting ready to play my match. And so I was just online researching, and I came across Angel List, which is basically a bunch of jobs that startups post. And it was really cool because you could see what all the different companies were up to. They told you about the role. They even had on there kind of the salary. And so it all looked good. I submitted my application to a few different companies. By the time I got off my match, I'd already heard back from a couple, and I was like, okay, sweet. Started interviewing. In some ways, had no idea what I was doing, to be honest. But I just showed up. I think that's the biggest, most important step. Show up.
Yeah.
Be your authentic self, and then who knows what happens. And there was a company called Keep Truckin' that took a chance on me, and I took a chance on them. They were essentially hiring for their first customer-facing role. New company. They were a Series A company. Actually, had just raised their Series A. And I won't bore everybody with what they do, but it's in the trucking industry, as the name kind of alludes. Never thought I would be in the trucking industry.
What? I'm surprised.
Yeah, it was crazy. I come from playing tournaments and traveling the world, and I'm talking to these truckers on the phone. So that was really interesting. And I can go in depth about that, but I'll spare that and let you drill me if need be. And then I also worked for a couple other startups before transitioning into my coaching business now.
Well, let's talk about that. So,
yeah.
So I remember when we spoke, several months ago, you were excited to be launching this thing. So you launched the company, and now you're out there and you're working with other athletes that are struggling with their transition, but also with current athletes. But tell me a little bit about what are some of the issues that you see with some of the athletes that you work with? What are some of their struggles? And what's causing that, do you think?
Yeah, I think kind of first and foremost, going back to what I was talking about before around identity. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing because this is something that I'm pretty big on. And so from the kind of beginning of our work together, I tried to assess how solid and strong of an understanding of themselves do they have. And it's incredible because most people, that's the thing, it's my story, but it's not really unique to me, is what I've learned. In talking with a lot of athletes, a lot of us, go through the same kind of things. And that I think stems a lot around, I'm a football player, I'm a basketball player. And so it's kind of really doing some work around understanding who are you outside of that. But then also actually, depending on who we are today, that's not how we have to be forever. We can actually change and evolve into whatever we want to be. So it's also kind of getting them outside of their current world and thinking about life in the future and dreaming. What does that look like? What does your dream life look like? And so those 2 points alone typically take a lot of time.
Well, but you're right. But see, they're critical points, right? Once, I've found with some of the athletes that I've been working with is that once you get them in the mental mode of being confident again, that they can be relevant, they can contribute, they can be, winners once again, which is no pun intended on my book. But the whole concept is that, when they're on the field or on the court, rink, whatever it is, their confidence is through the roof. They know that they're one of the world's best. And then suddenly they're not. And suddenly they're sitting on the couch. And they don't know, it's almost like they're looking around saying, well, where can I go to be the world's best again? Yep. And that's the big time struggle. And it's once you show them that their athletic mindset is what makes them continue to be valuable to other companies, or if they want to start a business, to other potential clients and so forth, is that once you sort of lay out, well, here's what you have that you bring to the table that a lot of non-athletes don't have, then it's all about restoring their confidence. So that's great. So with some of the people you've worked with, what sort of, is there, in your opinion, like a time frame of how long it takes to transform them? Or I mean, I'm assuming everybody's a little bit different, but how long does it take to get them back up and running again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is it doesn't take as much time as one would think, but it also takes time. And yes, everybody's different. I mean, a lot of stuff starts to come out, and I think a lot of it even, stems from childhood. What kind of family environment did you grow up in? The support system that you had growing up, the support system you have now. So obviously, depending on those factors, it could be different for anyone. But I think typically, with most of the athletes I work with, I would say on the minimum, we do about 3 months of work. And then typically it's probably around 6 to 8 to maybe even a year. And then I'm just now getting to the point where I'm starting to have athletes that are even moving on beyond that year. Kind of where I coach around 5 different pillars. So we've kind of moved on, but we're in that 5th pillar, which is flow and thrive. So maintaining that and building that.
Well, look, you bring up a great point that it's something that an athlete is accustomed to having a coach. A top athlete has a coach typically, and throughout their career. And so it stands to reason. And I think what I'm seeing, and I know you are too, that even in the world of sort of corporate America or the world, that senior level executives are realizing that, yes, having a coach is not a weakness, it's a strength, because there's only so much, what we don't know, right? So having someone else really show us that is hugely important. And, even whether it's a coach or a mentor, however you want to describe it, but somebody that can, so I think, quite frankly, yeah, maybe there's a lot of stuff that's front loaded in terms of what we can offer athletes. But then after that, there's a question of just keeping literally on the ball, or on the, however you want, whatever analogy you want to put in there. But that's great. So what has been your toughest, like the toughest hurdle to get past for now? I mean, what has been the toughest thing for you to teach, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, I think the toughest thing is more when other factors come into play. So again, if certain things from childhood does come up, or things that are, more like traumatic past experiences, whether they're known or unknown, and they come out within our work. Because I'm not a psychologist, and I don't have training in that. So I think it's kind of walking that fine line of being able to support them, but also maybe, kind of helping them to find a different support system, if need be, outside of myself. And so that's something else too. It's kind of like, I try to be the integral member of their team, but pull in other resources as need be to help support the athlete as a whole. So I'd say that's kind of the more difficult stuff when we get into real traumatic issues.
Okay. And one thing that I've noticed is that, interestingly, the athletes I work with are often reluctant to do even just the simple reach out. Like, for example, if they're on LinkedIn, just the simple act of sending an invitation to connect on LinkedIn, it's the idea of them showing any vulnerability, and the fact that even though I show them how to not show that they need help, but the fact that they're reaching out and asking for help, it kills them, right? Yep. They're used to always being the one in control or on top or whatever it is. And suddenly now they're feeling like they're needy, and they hate that. Have you seen that?
It's interesting. I mean, split, yes and no. I think some are also really good at kind of, taking instruction and tasks and kind of like, yep, I can do that. And they're the kind of go-getters. So it's been pretty mixed from my experience, where there's some where it's kind of like, yep, okay, done. And then I kind of see what you're saying. And I have experienced that with a few athletes on the side of more maybe ego getting involved.
Right. Well, and then you're right. I mean, now that I think about it, there's some that haven't had an issue, and there's also some that are so, it's interesting. They're almost so humble that they don't ever want to mention that they played a sport or they did something, which is, you
Yep.
know, interesting. It's look, I mean, you're probably much more suited to climb into someone's brain and figure out that stuff than I am to an extent. But I think that, you know, I'm excited because there's more action and more sort of a spotlight being shown on helping athletes. You know, when I first got into working with athletes directly, it was just really only about 3 years ago. And going into that, before, I mean, I'd been helping professionals, executives, all this stuff for years and years and years. And really, I was just helping them kind of go from one place to another, but it wasn't a complete transformation typically. And then with athletes, it's usually a complete transformation or a very major one. And what was interesting to me was when I first helped this, it was a hockey player. He said to me, Mark, you really need to work with athletes because we don't have a support structure. When we leave our game, we're pretty much kicked to the curb. Our agents leave if we have one. The teams don't care anymore. The leagues don't care anymore. I mean, there are some leagues that have players associations, retired players, and all this stuff. But a lot of times their stuff is really not, it's not that good or strong or something. They check boxes, in my opinion. But I'm sure they do great work and they feel like they're doing great work and they want to do great work. But there's just it's sort of a lot of it's old school mentality, which drives me a little bit bonkers. But anyway, but look, I think that the fact that you're getting out there and you're starting to work with athletes and really help them, because, you know, one thing I like to say is I had a conversation a while ago with somebody over at the U.S. Olympic Committee, and they were saying that they're sort of under so much pressure because there are so many Olympians and retired Olympians that are reaching out to them for help. And they've got a program in place. It's the ACE program, and it's a pretty effective one, but it can't satisfy all these people. And they say, you know, they're like, Mark, you know, we just have way too many. We're under a lot of pressure, too many people. I said, look, don't focus on all the people. Focus on one. If you help one person and you show that one person how to make changes in their life and how they approach things, that person will tell 3 others, and those people will tell 3 others. So your message will get out to a lot more people if you just work on the one. And they're like, oh God, we never even thought of it that way. And I think that's something that actually I kind of was doing one of those, hey, wait a minute, those make sense. Holy crap. Yeah. But every once in a while, it's funny. The light bulb goes off and I got to take advantage of it while it's off. But anyway, but I think that, and you're going to find this too, Kady, I think as you develop your business more and more. Speaking of developing your business, Kady, I want yours to kick butt. I think we can say that. Can we say the word kick butt on this? Yeah, I think we can. Anyway, and
it's yours. You can say whatever.
Yeah, oh, that's right. That's right. It's mine. But anyway, one of the things that I'm a big fan of, and you know this already, so we've sort of gone through this a little bit, but is really leveraging the power that is social media and can be social media into creating and growing your business. And I think that there are hundreds and thousands of businesses out there that do almost overuse social media to an extent, but don't use it necessarily properly. In my case, I'm a big fan and always have been of LinkedIn, mostly because, not because it's, you know, everybody, my kids and everybody, oh, it's, you know, the old person's network and all this kind of stuff. But to me, the ability to target specific people and specific businesses and really reach an audience that you can really kind of pick and choose. But then on top of that, you can put in your own, you know, on it your own content. And when you add content and materials where you're giving advice, but then you're giving a call to action that drives people back to your page, they take a look at your page, your profile, and they see what you do, and then you steer them towards your website and all that sort of thing. It's basically almost, I hope you're not listening, LinkedIn, but free advertising. It's basically, if you're providing value, I think the value will come back to you. And so I'm going to be on your case a little bit, because I'm going to want to see your profile really crush it. I know that you're undergoing a couple of small tweaks in what you're doing, but I'm excited because I know that when you hit the go button, I think people are going to really want to flock to you because you've got a very a magnetic personality. As you said, you may have been the class clown once and this and that, but you also, you know, you've been through it, you've lived it, and you know it, and you can talk about it. And people are drawn to people with experience in certain things and not just the either the good looking face, the pretty face, the whatever it is, or the talking head or something, but someone that they know has been through what they've been through, right?
I definitely agree with you as far as LinkedIn being a really valuable tool. It's something I'm starting to get a little bit more of a presence on. In general, I don't really appear in a lot of social media, even in my personal life. But I know for building a business, it's really valuable. And actually, I've been working on an article, and LinkedIn will be the first place that I'll be posting it. So now a little bit more pressure to get that published, and I guess stay tuned for it.
Oh, stay tuned. But look, one thing I want to make sure you do though is when you write an article on LinkedIn, if it's an article or even just a post, always have a call to action in there of any sort, whether it's something about, make sure you go to my website, check out more, or go to the website and you can download my download my 2-page report on blah, 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 whatever the hell it is, something. But always keep people engaged. Also, ask people to comment below. One little tip I like to tell people all the time is, instead of saying, share this with your entire network, because then people are like, instead say, share this with 3 people in your network. And apparently, I don't know, I read it somewhere, but some study has shown or something, when you tell someone to do something for 3 things or 3 people or 3, you've heard the whole thing about everything's in threes. If you ask people to share with 3 people in the network, they're more than likely to say, which 3 should I share this with? Apparently it works, I guess. I don't know.
That's cool. I'm going to try that.
All right. Listen, we're going to crush right into something I call my little segment I call Hit Your Mark. It's a fast little question and answer thingy. Should be easy peasy. But what I need to know right this second is if you and I played a game of tennis today or tomorrow, because I can't get there in time today, how badly would you kick my ass? And would I need to give you sort of like 5 games and like 30 love? Or 45 or 40 love?
Lucky for you, I haven't been playing much. So, you might be able to maybe scrape a game, but I'm going to say a good 6 love.
Damn it. Now, I might, listen, there's a good chance I play dirty. You don't be surprised if the racket flies out of my hand at some point, or, I gotta balance things out a little bit. I can't get all right, well, wait a second. But how good are you at ping pong?
Pretty good. I think anything with a racket, I like to think that I'm towards the upper echelon. I won at Keep Truckin'. We had a ping pong tournament and I did win it. So that maybe means something.
All right. I'm taking you on and we'll see how you do in that. I'm not going to.
Pickleball is the new thing though.
What's that?
You got to try pickleball. Pickleball is the new game.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I don't know how much we have it here on the East Coast, but my dad was actually talking. He's 91, by the way, and he lives in Lake Tahoe. And he said that they're in the Incline. They've got a pickle courts, or are there specific pickleball courts, or are they all inside of a tennis court?
Specific pickleball courts, but a lot of tennis courts are now kind of being converted over. You can draw specific lines on it.
Wow. I grew up, as you've already made clear, a lot sooner than you did, a lot long ago. But my big sport was paddle tennis back then. Here in the East Coast, we have. Do you know what paddle tennis is?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, it's a long story, but I played with my high school history teacher in a tournament, maybe or maybe not, to help my grade.
Oh, that's hilarious. I was actually nationally ranked for a little while when I was I think it was 14 and unders, and maybe 16 and unders, which is great to tell people, except for the part that there may have been like 16 people playing. So I don't know if that was that impressive, but that was a long time ago. Back then, the ball was square too. It was really, they invented the round ball after that. Anyway, so the next question is this: if you do you have a pet? Oh, you have a dog right now, don't you?
I do.
And does the dog kind of go with you everywhere, mostly, except for trips to Hawaii?
It depends. Yeah, not to trips to Hawaii. But like if I'm working at a cafe, she likes to tag along. She stays at home sometimes, but I'd say mostly I like her company, so I'll take her with me depending on where we're going.
Got it. If you had a pet, if you had a pet that wasn't a cat or a dog, what would it be?
A dolphin.
Get out. Cool.
Yeah. Right. Like just maybe like an ocean in my backyard. or like a really, really, really big aquarium, but I think like a dolphin.
That's awesome. No one's ever said that. The last guy I had on, he said he wanted a cheetah because he's like, because I'm like a cheetah. I'm like, oh, Jesus. All right. God. Good.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking something more peaceful, and I can go swimming with it and like take rides on it, you know?
Yeah. And then when you're bored, you can just sit by the pool or the aquarium and sip a margarita, and your dolphin will do flips for you.
Yeah, exactly. Party tricks for all of our guests.
You know what? I have this weird feeling that in like 5 years, and you're going to be a multi-jillionaire. I'm going to fly out and you can be like, Mark, told you, here's my dolphin. Here's Flipper 2. 10
so
or funny. Oh my God. All right. Who's your favorite tennis player right now and why?
Serena. I mean, she's the GOAT for sure. Not just for, tennis, and not just for female athletes, but I mean, I think in general, period. But what she's doing for women and putting women's athletics and just the fierceness and ferocity she has behind it. I have mad respect for her and her competitive drive on court and off.
Yeah, excellent answer. And so with that said, have you ever met her?
I have, yeah. We practiced a long time ago. I don't even think she would remember it. I was incredibly nervous.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Did you play dirty at all or not?
No.
All right. I'm joking. I'm not everybody, I'm not encouraging that. All right. Anyway. And then lastly, and this is sort of pretty important, but I mean, what and I don't mean that when I ask this question, it's not meant like you're getting old or something when I say what kind of legacy do you want to leave, but I mean, what kind of, when people start thinking about you as the years go by in terms of the work you're going to do, how do you want people to think of you? Yeah,
damn, that's a big question. I mean, first and foremost, I want people to think of me as somebody who was authentic to themselves. And so, kind of showed up as who I was. And hopefully, making an impact on athletes specifically, and, any potential mental health problems, physical health problems, etc., that a lot of us do go through once our sport is over. And hopefully I'm somebody who, and I don't think it's going to be myself, I think it's going to be a team and a lot of people, but hopefully I'm one of the important people that's helped to kind of define what a good, healthy, smooth transition can look like for these elite athletes.
Oh, great answer. So Kady, what's the best way for people to track you down right now these days?
Yeah, so as of today, I have a website called overtimeathletecoach.com. I am working on a new domain so that it's not so long, but overtimeathletecoach.com. Can also find me on LinkedIn. So Kady, Kady, as you mentioned, Pooler. And then also anybody can send me an email. That's overtimecoach@gmail.com.
Excellent. And they should. So lastly, I want to know, when are you going to write a book?
Oh man. Yeah. I want to be like you. It's funny. My partner actually is constantly asking me that as well. And I think it will happen. Just not anytime soon. I have too many projects I'm working on. And I think not enough.
By the way, it's super easy. It doesn't even take any time. So easy to do. No, by the way, if anybody asks you to write a book, tell them no, leave me alone. Get it on Netflix. I don't know, whatever.
That's been my answer thus far, so we'll keep going with that.
Although, what's funny? Now that I've written the one, I have all these ideas for a second, and then part of me is saying, that part of you that's saying, that's screaming, don't do it, you're an idiot, you got too much going on your plate. The other part was, well, it was kind of cool to have the one, and I was thinking, well, maybe all I need to do is just switch a few words around, because I think some people, when you see someone and say, Nancy Jones or Bob Smith has written 17 books on whatever it is. I'm like, how is that possible? Like, I feel like I kind of used up all my stuff in the first book.
All the info. Yeah. Whatever.
Anyway, well, look, Kady, thanks so much for being on. I'm looking forward to working with you, or it's not even work, right? It's fun. This is all great stuff, right? But collaborating, etc., with you going forward. You've been an amazing guest. Thanks so much for being on the Make Your Mark podcast. It's clear to me, and this is why I wanted to have you on. You're absolutely making your mark today, and you're continuing to do so. So thanks for being on, and Best of luck going forward.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's really my pleasure. And I enjoyed our conversation as always, Mark.
You're the best. Thanks, Kady. See you soon.
All right. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.